Hey guys, what's up? Welcome you all to another video, and today we are going to learn paradox. So what is paradox? So paradox is a statement which seems on its face to be logically contradictory or absurd. It turns out to be interpretable in a way that makes sense. An instance is the conclusion to John Donne's sonnet, Death be not proud. So now I am reading the lines. One shot slip past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more, death thou shalt die. So it means that one day will come when everybody will sleep and everybody die, and after the death when the world will end, everybody in the heaven and there will be no death. So in this way death will die when after the day of Qiyamah, that is the day of the last judgment. So if you look at these two sentence, these two lines of the poem of John Donne, so we came to know that actually it seems to be absurd, but actually it has a meaning that after the day of judgment there will be nobody will die, because everybody either will be in heaven or in hell, okay, and the death will be no there. So therefore it has a meaning. So again I repeat, a paradox is a statement that contradicts itself or that must be both true and untrue at the same time. Paradoxes are quirks in logic that demonstrate how our thinking sometimes goes haywire even when we use perfectly logical reasoning to get there. But a key part of paradoxes is that they at least sound reasonable. They are not obvious nonsense, and it is only upon consideration that we realize their self-defending logic. So the paradox is used occasionally by almost all poets, but was a persistent and central device in the 17th century metaphysical poetry, both in its religious and secular forms. So John Donne, who wrote a prose collection titled Problems and Paradoxes, exploited the figure constantly in his poetry. So he has written one poem, The Canonization, for example, is organized in an extended proof full of logic paradoxes of the paradoxical thesis that sexual lovers are saints. So you can say that the sexual lovers are saints. Paradox is also a frequent component in verbal wit. So let's start with the main part. So let's see the statement. This statement is a lie. This is the most famous of all logical paradoxes because it is so simple. These 5 simple words are self-contradictory. If the statement is true, then it is a lie, which means it is not true. But if it is not true, then it is a lie, which makes it true. Yikes! So in literary analysis, paradox can sometimes have a looser meaning, a person or situation that contains contradictions. For example, a character who is both charming and rude might be referred to as a paradox, even though in the strict logical sense. In literary analysis, paradox can sometimes have a looser meaning, a person or situation that contains contradictions. For example, a character who is both charming and rude might be referred to as a paradox, even though in the strict logical sense there is nothing self-contradictory about a single person combining disparate personality traits. We will distinguish these two definitions by calling the strict definition logical paradox and the loose definition literary paradox. So let's start with the examples. So example 1. So before moving on the example, I would like to give you more information about the paradox. So if the paradoxical utterance conjoins two terms that in ordinary uses are contrary, it is called an oxymoron. An example is Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem O Death in Life, the days that are no more. The oxymoron was a familiar type of patrician conceit in Elizabethan love poetry. In phrases like pleasing pains, a burn and freeze, loving hate, it is also a fragment figure in devotional prose and religious poetry as a way of expressing the Christian mysteries, which translate human sense and logic. So, John Milton described the appearance of God in Paradise Lost, book number 3, line number 380. Dark with excessive bright, thy skirts appear. So, you can see the how the paradox used by John Milton in here. So, paradox was a prominent concept of many new critics. So, paradox is a very important thing for the new criticism. New critics extended the term from its limited application to type of figurative language so as to encompasses all surprising deviation from or qualifications of common perception or commonplace opinions. It is in this expanded sense that the Clean Brooks is able to claim with some plausibility that the language of poetry is the language of paradox. In his book, The Well-Wrought Urn, which was published in 1947. So, now let jump on the examples. So, example number 1 is nobody goes to Murphy's bar anymore. It is too crowded. So, if the bar is crowded, then lots of people are going. But if so many people are going, it makes no sense to say nobody goes there anymore. It is possible though that this paradox can be escaped by suggesting that by nobody the speaker just means none of our friends. Okay, so here you got the meaning of it. Example 2. A time traveler goes back in time and murders his own great grandfather. Time travel paradoxes are very common in popular culture. In this classic example, the time traveler murders his own great grandfather, meaning that the time traveler cannot exist. But if he does not exist, then there is no one to kill the great grandfather, and thus he must exist. So, logical paradoxes of this sort are one of the many reasons why time travel is such a difficult proposition for science. The importance of paradox. So, what is the importance of paradox? Logical paradoxes have been used for centuries to demonstrate the fallibility of human logic. Although logic is a valuable tool, it sometimes breaks down, as in the example of this statement is a lie. Philosophers and mystics often use paradoxes to prove that human beings have to approach their world using intuition as well as logic. The literary paradox, on the other hand, may help art imitate life. The world around us is full of contradictions, especially when it comes to people's behavior and personality. So, when a character combines disparate elements, it seems very lifelike and three-dimensional. Most people are paradoxes in one or another. So, a main character who wasn't somehow paradoxical could seem slitted or dull. Such paradoxes can also lend mystery to a story, which helps to make it more compelling. So, again, examples from literature. So, first example of literary paradox is I must be cruel only to be kind, Hamlet. In Act 3, Scene 4, line number 181. So, this is a nice literary paradox, but not a logical one. Cruel and kind are apparent contradictions, but of course, it is perfectly logical to say that one must be cruel in some minor way in order to be kind in some other more important way. There is no logical contradiction and therefore no logical paradox. The character Hamlet, however, combines disparate attributes of kindness and cruelty, so his personality is loosely paradoxical. Number second example is a logical paradox. A Chinese folktale tells of a blacksmith who created the best armor and weapons in the world. He once created a spear that could pierce any object. He then created a shield that could deflect any attack. When a young boy asked him what would happen if he tried to pierce the shield with a spear, the blacksmith realized he could not answer. Because of this story, the Chinese character for paradox is a spear next to a shield. So, I hope that you understood the paradox, and If you have any kind of questions, please make in comment section, or you can also fill in the attendance form about your questions, or you can directly WhatsApp me about your questions. So thank you very much for watching.